want to talk to you for a few minutes today about how you're going to dress for your story today. Historically, the way that people would dress and how that's connected to their identity and who they understood them to be and the story that they understood themselves to be living was all quite deeply connected. I know some of you, when you're listening to Become New, do it while you're getting ready in the morning, including while you're getting dressed. And it's often kind of a metaphor for what posture will I assume for the day. I am often quite careless in the way that I dress. I am looking at the camera right now and I forgot I'm wearing a yellow t-shirt underneath this shirt, about which more in a few moments. And it's got kind of a bumblebee look. It's probably not the greatest way to go. I will sometimes wear mismatched socks. I have worn a shirt inside out all day long just because I didn't notice. In the world of the early church, in the New Testament world, actually clothes and identity and story were very, very tightly connected. Joseph Hellerman is a New Testament scholar. He wrote a book called Reconstructing Honor in Roman Philippi. And he talked about how in that day, rank, status was very important. It was an honor society. Cicero said rank must be preserved. So it would be reinforced in lots of ways: where you sat when you went to a public event, the laws that did or did not apply to you, and the clothes that you wore. So there was a thing called a freedman's cap. If you were a slave, you could not wear that. And there was a toga. If you were a freedman but not a citizen, you couldn't wear a toga. They were quite cumbersome. There would be valets especially trained to dress you in a toga because they were kind of a pain in the neck. If you were of senatorial rank, you could wear a purple stripe on your toga, but nobody else could because that was a very expensive and precious dye. You were also, if you were of senatorial rank, allowed to wear gold rings. Other people were not allowed to wear them. And by the way, that's part of why we see texts like this one in the New Testament. This is James chapter 2. My brothers and sisters, believers in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ, must not show favoritism. Suppose a man comes into your meeting wearing a gold ring and fine clothes. Okay, so this is something about the rank. It's not just that that person has money, although that's part of it. And a poor man in filthy old clothes comes in. If you show special attention to the man wearing fine clothes, saying, here's a good seat for you, but say to the poor man, you stand there, sit on the floor by my feet, have you not discriminated among yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts? So this was going to be a community where people would clothe themselves quite differently. And you have Paul saying these words when he writes to the church at Colossae. So you and I could think about that as we think about how will I dress myself for my story today. Therefore, as God's dearly beloved people, chosen and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other, forgiving each other whatever grievance you might have against each other. Forgive just as Jesus has forgiven you. And over all these virtues, put on love, which binds them together in perfect unity. How do you want to dress for your story today? I just got back from preaching someplace, and I pretty much always forget something when I go someplace, often an article of clothing. In this case, I had to preach there. I had a blue blazer to wear, but I needed to get a shirt. I didn't bring a shirt that I could preach in, so I bought this shirt. You may be listening to this via podcast and then you can't see it, which is fine. Even if you're looking, you probably can't tell. I did not notice because I just picked the shirt out, didn't particularly look at it, but it is covered with skulls and crossbones, literally scores and scores of just dead skulls and crossbones. I was a pirate. I didn't want to be a pirate. Or worse, kind of creepy to be preaching about the good news and wearing a shirt that's covered with skulls and crossbones. When I was preaching, one of the people that came up to me afterwards was telling me, I met him and his wife, and I had actually talked quite a lot in this sermon about Abraham Lincoln and slavery and emancipation and how God was a deep part about that. And he said, you know who John Woolman is? John Woolman was a Quaker activist, abolitionist in the 1700s. And it turns out that his wife actually is a direct descendant of John Woolman. and had remarkable stories to tell and remarkable family relics from the journey of John Woolman. So I thought, as we're looking at stories today, I would say a little bit about and read a little bit from the writings of this man, John Woolman. He was a merchant initially and wrote up legal documents, and then over time felt a calling to teach about God and to write about God. He wrote in his journal when he begins it, "I have often felt a motion of love to leave some hints in writing of my experience of the goodness of God." Now that'd be a good thing to clothe myself in today, the goodness of God. And then he goes on. "My mind, through the power of truth, was in a good degree weaned from the desire of outward greatness." That's a remarkable thought. By the way, do you have any idea what is the longest published book in North American history? Of course, the book that has been continuously published the longest is the Bible. Number 2 after that, the Journal of John Woolman. It was published initially in 1774, so this marks its 250th anniversary. It has never been out of print. How remarkable it is in our stories that often it's people who are able to allow God to wean them from the desire for outward greatness, who have an impact far beyond anything they could imagine. His journals were not published until actually 2 years after he died, so he never knew. "I was learning to be content with real conveniences that were not costly, so that a way of life free from much entanglements appeared best for me, though the income was small. I saw that a humble man with the blessing of the Lord might live on little, and that where the heart was set on greatness, success in business did not satisfy the craving, but that in common with an increase of wealth, the desire for wealth increased. There was a care on my mind to so pass my time as to things outward, that nothing might hinder me from the most steady attention to the voice of the true shepherd." That'd be a good thing to wear today. Steady attention to the voice of the true shepherd. And John Woolman did that. And his impact on the world around him became quite extraordinary. He writes about how when he was a young boy, he saw a robin on her nest, and he took a rock and threw it, as young kids sometimes do, and killed the robin. And he was so devastated by looking at what he had done that one of the marks of his life going forward, this is back in the 1700s, is he became an early ardent lover of all life, of all creatures, much like St. Francis of Assisi, and would promote their well-being on a regular basis. 2 more sections from what he says. Oh, interestingly enough, he also became an abolitionist, as I mentioned, and very concerned about working conditions for all people. He also decided at a certain point that he would never again wear any fabrics that were dyed, because he learned that there were people in the dye industry who were killed because of the toxic nature of much of the materials that were used back at that point, and he didn't want to be a part of that. And he thought quite deeply about the choices that he made and the way that he lived and how that impacted other folks. "I was renewedly confirmed in my mind that the Lord, whose tender mercies are over all his works, and whose ear is open to the cries and groans of the oppressed, is graciously moving in the hearts of people to draw them off from the desire of wealth, and to bring them into such a humble, lowly way of living that they may see their way clearly to repair to the standard of true righteousness, and may not only break the yoke of oppression, but may know him to be their strength and support in times of outward affliction." And over the course of his life, he became more and more outspoken and devoted to the cause of abolition because he loved Jesus. So when he was 26, somebody asked him to make out their will, and it included directives for someone that was an enslaved person, and he was able to convince them to set that person free, and increasingly traveled and taught and spoke about abolition and God until By the time he died in 1772, the vast majority of Quakers, in large amount apparently due to his influence, had freed any of the enslaved persons that were under them and become committed to freedom. One more word from him. He talks about a vision he had during a time of serious illness. I then heard a soft, melodious voice, more pure and harmonious than I had ever heard with my ears before. I believed it was the voice of an angel who spoke to the other angels. The words were, "John Woolman is dead." I greatly wondered what that heavenly voice could mean. I was then carried in spirit to the mines, where poor oppressed people were digging rich treasures for those called Christians. And I heard them blaspheme the name of Christ, at which I was grieved, for his name was precious to me. Then I was informed that these heathens were told that those who oppressed them were the followers of Christ. And of course, there were, in his day, many, many people who called themselves followers of Jesus, who had oppressed slaves. And they said among themselves, "As Christ directed them to use us in this way, then Christ is a cruel tyrant." All this time, the song of the angel, "John Woolman is dead," remained a mystery, and I was very desirous to get so deep that I might understand it. At length, I felt divine power prepare my mouth so I could speak, and then I said, "I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. And the life I now live in the flesh is by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me." Then the mystery was opened, and I perceived there was joy in heaven over a sinner who had repented, and that the language, "John Woolman is dead," meant no more than the death of my own selfish will. So maybe preaching in a shirt covered with skulls and crossbones is not such a bad idea. If I can die to everything inside me that needs dying to and put on Christ, you have a story that matters. Give a thought now about how you're going to dress for it.
Hey, if you enjoyed that video, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any future teachings from John Ortberg here at Become New. My name's Tim, and I'm a part of the team here. This series is all about stories. Everybody has a story, and everybody's story matters. And we want to know about your story, whether it's a story of coming to faith or a story of spiritual growth. Whatever it is, we're here for you. You can email that to us at connect@becomenew.com, or you can text it to us. You can also sign up for daily reminders whenever we drop a new video via text by texting the word BECOME to the number 855-888-0444. You can also send us prayer requests there. There's a team of us that meet to pray each weekday for viewers just like yourself. If you'd like to receive the emails that go along with each video, be sure to check that out at becomenew.com/subscribe. More than a video to watch, this is really a community to belong to, and we're so glad that you're a part of it. We'll catch you next time.